I spent hundreds on gifts for my family, then they uninvited me and used them anyway. So I gave them a taste of what being left out really feels like. I think you should leave. That's what my mom said. No hello, no hug, not even a flicker of emotion on her face. Just that flat, dry sentence that hit like a slap across the face. I was still standing on the front porch, arms full of carefully wrapped gifts, when she dropped the line. Behind her, through the screen door, I could see the warm yellow glow of the house I grew up in, now buzzing with the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. My sister Kayla was inside. So was her husband, Rick, and their twin boys, my nephews. It was Kayla's birthday. Or at least, it was supposed to be. I blinked. Sorry, what? You're not invited anymore, she said quietly, like she was embarrassed but not enough to change her mind. Kayla said it's better this way. Better. Right? Because nothing says family like a birthday party you've been uninvited from by your own blood. I stood there stunned, my arms going numb from the weight of the gifts. I'd driven 4 hours from Pittsburgh in my beat-up red Honda Civic, skipped work, booked a pet sitter, and spent over $300 on gifts for Kayla's family. Custom art kits for the twins. A signed baseball for Rick. A rare vinyl she mentioned months ago. I'd even made a cheesecake from scratch, the one Mom used to bake every Christmas. What changed? I finally asked. Last week, you told me to bring extra forks. Mom shifted uncomfortably. It's complicated. I tried to laugh, but my voice cracked. Is it because I didn't Venmo Kayla for that group trip I wasn't invited to? Or is it because I brought up Dad's old boat at Christmas and ruined the mood? No, she said quickly, eyes darting. It's just. Kayla feels like you make things about yourself. That one stung. I felt my face flush with heat. So, I make things about myself, and your solution is to kick me off the porch of the house I grew up in? She didn't answer. Just gave me that same look she always does when she doesn't want to admit something, that tight-lipped, pitying half-smile that makes me feel about 2 inches tall. Behind her, the twins' laughter rose into a shriek. A wave of applause followed. Someone had just opened a gift. I stared at my mom. You know what's funny? I said. These gifts aren't even for me. Then I turned and walked back to my car, still holding everything I'd brought. I drove 2 blocks before I pulled over. My hands were shaking. I sat there, breathing hard, the dashboard lights blurring in my vision. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was still too confused. Too numb. That's when I saw it. The picture. Kayla had just posted it on Instagram. The twins were tearing into a pile of presents. Rick stood behind them with a grin. And there, off to the side, was my mom holding my cheesecake. I stared at it for a long time. I hadn't even walked through the door. And yet, my cheesecake had. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just a miscommunication. This wasn't a mistake. It was a message. They didn't want me there. Just what I brought. Now I had to make a choice. Do I let this go and try to keep the peace, or do I finally ask the question I've been too afraid to face? Why am I always the one they're willing to leave out? I didn't go home right away. Instead, I pulled into the old community park near the lake, the one where we used to fish as kids. It was empty now, just a flickering street lamp and the sound of cicadas humming in the trees. I sat on the hood of my car, the night pressing in around me, and started scrolling through Kayla's post again. There were already dozens of comments. Auntie of the year. That cake looks amazing. Rick really nailed the decorations, look at those balloons. Not one mention of me. Not even a tag. It was surreal. I felt like a ghost at my own family's gathering. Like I died and no one had told me. Or worse, they had and they'd all just agreed not to bring it up. A notification popped up. Mom had posted a photo too. It was her and Kayla, arms linked, holding flutes of champagne. The caption? My girls. So proud of you both. Both. Even though I wasn't in the picture. Even though I wasn't there. Even though she was drinking from a glass I gave her last Christmas. I scrolled until my hands started to hurt. Until I'd pieced together a full timeline of the night I wasn't allowed to be a part of. Rick had grilled steaks. The kids got water guns. Someone made mojitos, Kayla's favorite. They even brought out sparklers. It wasn't just a birthday. It was a celebration of my replacement. That's what it felt like. Like somewhere along the way I got swapped out for this ideal version of a sibling, one who never says the wrong thing, never misses a payment, never calls anyone out for their passive-aggressive nonsense. One who doesn't make things about herself. The wind picked up. A gust blew through the trees and sent leaves skipping across the pavement. And right then, sitting under that broken streetlight, I had a realization I couldn't ignore. This isn't the first time they've left me out. When Kayla got married, they forgot to include me in the rehearsal dinner. When Rick got promoted, I found out from LinkedIn. Last Christmas, Mom made matching pajamas. For everyone but me. She swore it was a shipping error. It wasn't. I pulled out my phone and texted Mom one last time. Hey, just curious. Did you use the cheesecake I brought? 3 dots. Then they vanished. She was typing. Then stopped. Then typing again. Finally, the message came. It was already here. But thank you anyway. A lie. I know because the cheesecake had a very specific crack down the middle. The way mine always does when I use my old springform pan. They didn't even bother to hide it. And that's what broke me. Not the uninviting. Not the posts. Not even the fake smile in the photos. It was that they used everything I brought, except me. So I made a decision. One I've never made before. Next weekend, Kayla's throwing a second party. Something she called a friends and fam bash. I'd been invited months ago before all this. Now I wasn't sure what to do. Do I show up with a smile and act like this never happened? Or do I let them know I've finally caught on? And that I'm done being the invisible sibling? I didn't sleep that night. I tried. I even climbed into bed, pulled the covers up, and turned on one of those ambient rain YouTube loops I usually play when I need to calm down. But my thoughts wouldn't shut off. They just kept racing in circles, faster and louder, like a freight train with no brakes. I kept seeing Mom's face on that porch. Blank, detached. Like telling her son to leave was just another part of her evening checklist. Kept hearing Kayla's voice from behind the screen. Bright, chipper, with that condescending little edge she always uses when she knows I'm not supposed to answer back. You make things about yourself. That line looped over and over in my head like a skipped record. By 3 a.m., I was back in the living room, sitting in the dark with a whiskey sour and an old photo album I hadn't cracked open in years. There I was, age 10, arm wrapped around Kayla at her first dance recital. Me in middle school with braces and a cast, holding up her science fair trophy. Me at every graduation, every party, every moment that mattered to her. And now, I couldn't even get a slice of my own damn cheesecake. I flipped the album shut and sat there in the silence, gripping the glass like it might anchor me to something real, something solid. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about a birthday. It was about how I'd been slowly cut out of the frame for years. I used to think that if I just kept showing up, kept giving, kept forgiving, it would eventually balance out. That they'd remember the good things. That they'd see my worth. But maybe the problem was, I kept showing up even after they stopped caring. Maybe that made it easier for them to forget I was ever supposed to be part of the picture. I stared at my phone. Kayla's friends and fam bash was 6 days away. She'd sent a group text weeks ago, said it was come and go casual, but that she expected all the real ones to be there. I hadn't responded. Wasn't even sure if I still counted as one of the real ones. But I knew this. If I went, it wouldn't be with gifts. I wouldn't bring a pie, or a card, or a carefully wrapped token of goodwill. I'd bring the truth, and not the dramatic scream-in-the-kitchen kind either. No, I'd do what I always do best. Keep my cool, be polite, and say exactly what I mean with a smile so calm, they wouldn't know what hit them until the door slammed shut behind me. But I had to decide. Was it worth it? Was finally speaking up worth the fallout? Because something told me that once I crossed that line, there'd be no walking it back. No more family chats. No more pretending. No more breadcrumb apologies that never led anywhere. This would be scorched earth. I looked down at the photo album one last time and ran my fingers over a snapshot of me and Kayla on our grandparents' porch. Back when we were kids, before the walls got built between us. Then I whispered, I don't think I belong in this story anymore. I closed the book and made my choice. I RSVP'd yes. Not because I wanted to be there. Not because I was hoping for some miraculous apology or emotional reunion. I said yes because I needed closure. The Friends and Fam Bash was Saturday at 3 p.m. Backyard barbecue style. Kayla's text had all the classic touches. Burgers, beers, and backyard vibes. Bring your fave side dish and a folding chair. Cute. I didn't bring a chair. Or a side. Or anything. I just brought me. Pulled up in my dented Civic, parked halfway down the block behind a lifted Ford that definitely screamed Rick compensating for something, and sat there with the engine running for a solid 5 minutes. I could already hear the music thumping from the backyard, something annoyingly cheerful like that song from every commercial about summer fun. The driveway was lined with chalk drawings from the twins. One of them had written "Welcome Home Family" in huge letters surrounded by stars. That word family hit like a punch to the gut. I grabbed my sunglasses, killed the engine, and walked up the drive like I hadn't been disinvited less than a week ago. The gate creaked when I opened it, and suddenly every eye on the patio turned. There was Kayla holding a margarita and laughing with her friend Bethany. Rick manning the grill. Mom perched under the umbrella, sipping iced tea like a queen. The music didn't stop. Neither did the party. But the energy shifted. Subtle but real. Kayla's smile froze mid-laugh. Rick gave me a slow blink. And Mom, she didn't even try to look surprised. I walked over to the food table, grabbed a paper plate, and started scooping potato salad like I belonged there. That's when Kayla sauntered over, heels clicking on the deck. "Didn't think you were coming," she said, with that fake sweet tone she uses when she's about to stab you with a plastic fork. "Yeah," I replied. "Well, thought I'd see how the real ones party." She didn't blink. Just sipped her drink. Then she lowered her voice. "Look, I didn't mean to upset you last week, but you've got a habit of making things uncomfortable." I nodded slowly, then leaned in close and whispered, "You used my cheesecake." She froze. "Yeah," I said. "I saw it in the picture. Same crack down the middle. You told Mom to tell me not to come, but you still used what I brought." "Okay, seriously?" she hissed. "You're being weird." "No," I said, stepping back. "I'm being honest. For once." I turned and walked over to Mom. She didn't look up. "Hey," I said. "Just wanted to say thanks for always letting Kayla speak for you. Makes it easier to know where we stand." She opened her mouth to respond, but I was already walking away. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't flip any tables. I just left. And that quiet exit? It was louder than any scene I could have made. The silence afterward was deafening. No texts. No calls. Not even a passive-aggressive meme from Kayla about toxic vibes or drama queens. That part surprised me most. I figured someone would reach out. Try to patch it over. At least pretend they cared. But the only notification I got was an email from Amazon confirming the return of the twins' art kits. Yeah, I sent them back. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, arms behind my head, replaying every second of that backyard confrontation. It wasn't explosive. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get ugly. But I knew I'd drawn a line. And now I was waiting to see who, if anyone, would try to cross it. The next day, I got my answer. Mom called around noon. I let it ring. She didn't leave a voicemail. Just sent a short text. "You embarrassed Kayla. Hope you're proud." I stared at it for a while. No mention of the cheesecake. No acknowledgement of what really happened. Just a neat little package of guilt wrapped in 10 words or less. Then, a minute later, another one came in. "Don't make this worse." And that right there, that was the moment I finally understood. They weren't mad about what I'd said. They were mad that I said it out loud. Because the second you start telling the truth in a family built on silence, you become the problem. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and started drafting something I should have written years ago, a letter to my nephews. I knew they were too young to understand now. But one day, they'd grow up. They'd have questions. And I wanted there to be a record, something that said I tried. I told them how much I loved picking out their gifts. How I looked forward to birthdays and holidays even when I wasn't treated like part of the family. I told them they were never the reason I walked away. I told them I hoped they'd grow up with more kindness than the adults around them. When I finished, I saved it to a folder marked "One Day." Then I sat back and stared at the screen, heart racing like I'd just run a marathon. Because this wasn't just a family argument anymore. This was grief. The kind of grief you feel when you realize the people you love most only ever loved the version of you that didn't ask for anything back. 3 days passed. Still no calls from Kayla. I kept expecting one. Not because she missed me, but because she hates looking like the bad guy. And then it came. Not a phone call. Not a text. A Facebook post. One of those long, performative status updates that start with, "I don't usually post personal stuff, but you know the type." She went on about how some people only show up to cause scenes, and how true family doesn't need to be loud to be loyal. Then she tacked on a blurry photo of her and Mom clinking glasses. The caption, "Grateful for the people who always choose love." It had 27 likes in the first hour. I stared at it, fingers hovering over the screen. I could have commented, dropped a truth bomb, posted my own side, but I didn't, because I realized, finally, that the game wasn't rigged against me. I'd just been playing in the wrong arena. There was no winning this. Not when the scoreboard was controlled by people who only cheered when I stayed silent. So I did the only thing I had left in me. I logged off, deleted the app. That night, I pulled a box from the back of my closet, one I hadn't opened in years. Inside were old birthday cards from Kayla, back when we still got each other little inside joke gifts. A torn concert ticket from a band we saw when I was 16. A photo strip from the county fair where we both had braces and matching fake tattoos. I sat on the floor with that box for hours. And then I did something I didn't expect. I packed it all back up, walked to the fireplace, and lit it. One by one, I fed the memories to the flame. Not out of spite, not to erase them, but to free myself from the weight of trying to make them real again. When the fire died down, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean. And that was scarier than anything else. Because once you burn the last thread tying you to someone's approval, you can't pretend to be the same person anymore. You're someone new, someone they can't control. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the forgotten sibling. I felt like the one who left the table before it starved him. A week after the party, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name and a familiar script that used to appear on every birthday envelope growing up. Mom. I opened it carefully. The paper smelled faintly like her perfume, lavender and something synthetic. It brought back flashes of church mornings, forced family portraits, and Sunday dinners where we all pretended everything was fine. The letter started with what looked like an attempt at an apology, but it turned fast. I didn't know you felt so excluded, she wrote. You should have spoken up sooner. You always bottle things up and then explode. It puts us in a tough position. There it was again, that word. She never said you're right. Never said I'm sorry for hurting you. Just that my reaction was the problem. Not the behavior. Not the years of microcuts and selective silences. Just me. Then she asked if I'd be willing to come by and talk it through. Just the two of us. At the bottom of the page, she added a postscript. Kayla misses you. The twins do too. They don't understand why you're so distant lately. I folded the letter and sat with it in my lap. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry. I just felt tired. So tired of being the emotional translator for people who refuse to learn the language of accountability. I thought about that PS. About the twins. And for a moment it almost worked. Almost pulled me back into the orbit I'd finally broken free from. But then I remembered the cheesecake. The way they shut the door in my face but still used what I brought. And I thought, if I go back now, I'll be teaching them that all it takes to keep me is a guilt trip wrapped in stationery. I stood up, walked to my shredder, and fed the letter through without another glance. Not out of bitterness, but because I finally understood something. Forgiveness isn't the same as access. And just because you love someone doesn't mean they get to keep hurting you. The next morning, I booked a cabin in the mountains. Just for the weekend. No Wi-Fi, no cell service. Just trees, wind, and the low hum of nothingness. I needed space. Space from my family. Space from their expectations. Space from the version of myself who thought love had to be earned. The drive was quiet. No music. Just the road, my thoughts, and the kind of stillness that makes you notice things, like how you haven't actually breathed deep in weeks. When I got there, the place was tiny. One room, a fireplace, a sagging armchair that smelled like old wood and peppermint oil. There was a bookshelf stacked with mystery novels and dog-eared travel guides. Someone had left a note on the table. Welcome. Hope you find what you need. That night, I sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, watching fog roll in over the hills, and something strange happened. I didn't think about Kayla. I didn't think about the party. I didn't even think about the letter I shredded. I thought about me. Not the me who bends to fit everyone's expectations. Not the version who shows up with gifts just to be tolerated, but the one who showed up anyway, who asked for nothing but honesty. The one who left when it finally became clear that staying was breaking something inside him. And for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of that person. Not for being perfect, but for finally choosing peace over performance. The stars blinked faintly above the trees, and a breeze carried the scent of pine through the night. And I realized I didn't miss them. I missed who I thought they were. And that was a different kind of grief. A quieter one, but easier to carry. When I got home Sunday evening, my porch had a box on it. No note. Just my name in big, looping letters written with glittery pink marker. Kayla's handwriting. Inside were the unopened gifts I'd brought for the twins. The baseball. The art kits. Even the wrapping paper was still intact, but it looked like it had been handled roughly, creases, a little tear here and there. There was also a foil container inside. The cheesecake. One slice missing. No note. No explanation. Just returned goods. Like I was a vendor whose shipment didn't meet the quality standards of their little kingdom. For a moment I stood there on the porch holding the box, stunned not by the pettiness but by how predictable it was. I brought the gifts because I wanted to show love. They returned them because they only understand loyalty when it looks like obedience. And the cheesecake? They couldn't even pretend they didn't want to taste. There it was. The final twist. They'd already taken what they needed. And now that I was no longer playing my role, I was disposable. Just another phase-out quietly returned like a defective item, except I wasn't broken. Not anymore. I left the box on the kitchen counter and made myself tea. Didn't open the gifts. Didn't touch the cheesecake. Instead, I walked into the spare bedroom, my office/hobby room, and pulled out a blank canvas and my old brushes. I hadn't painted in years. I started with a soft, stormy sky. Then added 2 small figures on opposite cliffs, backs turned. No bridges. No words. Just distance and quiet. By midnight, I turned off my phone. Deleted Kayla's contact. Blocked her socials. Archived every group text with Mom. And finally, I sat on the couch, tea gone cold, heart strangely still. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't wondering what they'd say next. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't shrinking to fit back in. I was just done. And God, it was peaceful.